Okay. Hi, my name is Coco, and I wanted to talk about an artist that I've been kind of getting to know, I guess you could say, recently, and his name is Charlie Crockett. He is a singer-songwriter who was born in southern Texas, and he is known for playing around, but also staying in the realms of blues and country music. So, he blends a lot of these together or kind of stays true to one or the other. It's interesting what he does with these two genres. And the reason I kind of am fascinated by him is because he really wanted in his music, he talks about this a lot in interviews, which is he really wants to have that nostalgic kind of original country feel to his music. Like he wants it to be catchy and all of these things, but he wants, he wants these elements of blues and country that we've all grown up knowing about to stay true in his music, which is really cool. And something that doesn't happen, I feel like, as much anymore because of how much country music has evolved since it first got started. Um, so Charlie Crockett was not a very known artist up until I would say probably a couple years ago at most. And that's because he was traveling with the country music artist that we all think of, Willie Nelson. And so this kind of jump-started his true country career, I would say. And now, he can sell out, you know, amphitheater locations and all these things. So he definitely got his start because of Willie Nelson. And it's interesting to hear in his music, you can hear the difference between music before he was influenced by Willie Nelson, and now that he has been, it's taken on more of a country and kind of strayed away from blues as much, which is just an interesting observation as he's evolved as a musician. Um, so Charlie was born again in southern Texas, and he was, as a kid, known for having to busk on the streets in order to just make enough money for food because he was just born into a very poor family. And he talks about this in a lot of his songs, which I think is, again, another element of country music that we all know is that country music tends to be kind of speaking to more real life, which is great. And so his mom bought him a guitar from a pawn shop when he was 17 years old. And he ended up just teaching himself how to play. And that kind of sparked this, like, oh, I might want to do this for a living in him that now obviously has worked out and everything, but he talks about in a recent song that he released, it's called $10 Cowboy. And he mentions he's like, when I was on the streets, $10 was a whole lot of money. And which is just it's true to that kind of country music artist feel that we all know is like that struggling musician who's working on the streets playing these with his guitar, that's all he's got, and he's trying to play songs and make a living. So it's just everything about him feels very true to country. And now he's 38 years old, and I feel like he's very defined by his kind of old country feel in his music. Um, so country music began in the southern United States in about the 18th century when and it kind of got its big bang when a man named Ralph Peer ended up wanting to record some music. So he had his like traveling studio and he ran a newspaper ad and just hoped that he could get some local artists to come and he could record music and just get the word out basically about country music and all these things. So with this, he ended up creating some really cool hit records, such as Skip to My Lou, which I'm pretty sure everyone at least knows that song or has heard of it before. And he created some bestsellers with a group called the Carter Family too. And I think this created the bangin' country music just because the lyrics of all these songs had this sort of like familiarity to them. Like the melodies were easy. It was usually in like 4/4 time. It's easy to catch along to melodies that are made to be easy to catch along with. And I think that was something important in country music is that finally it kind of separated that church music from just the everyday working man music. So, and I think a lot of people wanted that because music isn't always meant to be played specifically in a church. And so it kind of started that evolution of music being played. Um, but the African Americans, even though they were treated so horribly during this time, they actually had a profound influence on country music. So they created work songs. So that would mean like they're out in the fields working and they'd create these melodies that then cause them to all be synchronized in all of their movements. And so that's kind of where we get that classic 4/4 time, is just, from these African Americans working on the field trying to get their labor done for the day. And also they created in blues, there's that flattening note that we hear a lot, and they created this note. So that's pretty cool. And it just, they would express deeper emotions in their music or like what they were singing because they had a hard life. So this was just kind of what they did in their work songs. And that ended up playing a big role in one of my favorite songs by Charlie Crockett, which is a song called I'm Workin', which I mean, you can just tell by the name that this is related to the African American work songs from the 18th century. Um, so the song uses quadruple meter. So it's 4 beats to a measure. The first beat has the primary accent, and then the third beat has the secondary accent. So it would be like one and two and like that kind of you accent the first and the third beats. And this is very common in country music. It's obvious why I like it. It's that classic 4/4 time that's like so easy just to follow along with and to get the beat. There's no weird jump outs. There's no, you know what I mean? Like it's all very it's pretty simple for the most part. But where this song is interesting is in the instruments that Charlie Crockett chose to use in this song. Because if you think about a classic country song, you think about a acoustic guitar and a man's voice pretty much. But what's interesting is you hear the intro, and the intro starts with a thing that goes bum ba dum ba dun 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 dun, and all of a sudden you hear a trumpet, which I mean is not incredibly unusual, but it feels very much like a uh a blues song rather than a country song. So that because that trumpet feels just, the saxophone and the piano, those kinds of instruments were all common in blues songs. So it feels very, you immediately wonder whether you're listening to country music or whether you're listening to blues. But I think this was kind of what Charlie was going for at the beginning of his career, which is great. So the percussion in this song also starts towards the beginning, and this kind of keeps the rhythm of the song going throughout the entire thing. And again, this was common in like a jazz or a blues band. You would have, the trumpet with the drums and the piano and all these solos that were happening to create this chaotic kind of jazz or blues feel. And it's just interesting because that's not what you'd expect when Charlie starts singing because it's such a country song once he starts singing. So the intro of the song, as I said, he's consistently singing bum ba dum ba dun 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 dun, and it just repeats over and over again for pretty much the entire song. And so the timbre of the song stays very bouncy and smooth with this voice throughout the entire song. And his voice when he's singing the bun dun 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 sounds very baritone, but when he actually comes in and starts singing the melody, the lyrics, his voice sounds more tenor. So what's interesting is the mix between both of these voices, one lower and one higher, creates not a traditional, but a harmonic kind of feel to it. It's a beautiful harmony between his lower voice and his higher voice. So I just think it just sounds very nice mixed together. Um, and this song is polyphonic, so each layer of sound has this different kind of melodic interest, and I forgot to change that. Has a different kind of melodic interest. So you have the bum ba dum, which seems to be kind of the metronome of the song. Bum ba dum bum bum ba dum, and it just the one and the third are always the ones that are more accented. And then you have the trumpet that kind of comes in and has its own riffs and all these things. And then you also have the drums that add this kind of unique addition that then feels, is it country? Is it blues? So it's just this lovely mix of all of these things intertwining. And it feels very true to the classic country music, but integrated into the modern day with a mix of blues. And it all feels very true to like what the African Americans had an impact on and what, he's doing, trying to acknowledge these different things. So I'm going to play the first minute of this song and you can hear the different beats. I was going to South Texas, didn't have $1 to our name. My papa left my mama there. The big cotton name. And you can hear it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
So I'm spend my time in the sunshine ray. I'm working, baby. I'm working.
And the trumpet just adds that interesting texture to this whole song.
I'm working for you. I wanna know if it's worth it. I just want better, and I'm about to break on through. Baby, I'm working.